Welcome to the Multi-Orgasmic Mama podcast, where sexy motherhood taboos are broken. I'm Tilly Storm, holistic sex and jade egg coach and tantric sex teacher, all-around pleasure and prosperity advocate, and mama of two. If you are looking to get the spark back in your sex life and relationship, if you'd like to revive desire and feel sexy again without hormones, years of therapy, or trying things that don't feel authentic in the bedroom, then download my free Ignite Your Desire e-guide at www.tillystorm.com/e-guide. This episode is brought to you by the Sensually Embodied Woman Collective. If you're ready to remove all your blocks to pleasure, turn on and feeling confident and sexy in your body through my paid programs and offerings, then head to www.tillystorm.com today. Welcome back, Hot Mamas. It is almost Mardi Gras here in New Orleans, and even though this time of year might not be as festive as it has been in the past, I am so excited to be able to share with you our guest for today, which brings me almost as much joy as a normal Mardi Gras season. I had the opportunity to interview this week a sexually embodied woman graduate who had her first cervical orgasm on Christmas Day. Oh my goodness. Her name is Amira, and she is a health and fitness coach who helps moms rejuvenate their bodies postpartum and support them on their motherhood journey. In her interview, she shares how the jade egg practice helped her reconnect with her body and her sexuality after having kids, and how she learned what she liked sexually and grew the confidence and the courage to ask for it. So if you want to be the next essentially embodied woman success story, the time is now, Hot Mamas. Registration closes for this round that starts March 3rd on March 2nd, 2021. Head to www.tillystorm.com/sensually-embodied-woman for all of the details and to apply. All right. Hey there, Amira. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your amazing story.
Of course.
Yeah, I will always go down as remembering you as Miss Cervical Orgasm on Christmas Day.
It's the best Christmas present ever.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Well, for those of you that don't know, Amira did the Sensually Embodied Woman course in November, in which we just finished the program this past week. And I invited her on to share with you her journey through the program. So other than having cervical orgasms on Christmas and other amazing things, like maybe you want to share with us your win from yesterday.
Yeah. So, gosh, Valentine's is coming up, and I'm feeling so amazing right now compared to where I was before I started the program. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go buy some lingerie. And I specifically had in mind something that I wanted to wear, that I would feel good in, that I would feel sexy in, regardless of what anybody else would think, because yeah, I just want to feel good. And so I went and took my youngest child to the store and got myself something soft and lacy and luscious. And I'm so excited to wear it. I'm having a hard time keeping it as a surprise from my husband because I'm so excited about it.
That is awesome. I love it. Oh my God. Yeah, when I saw her post, it was about I picked something out that I liked for me, not for him, but I got it because I liked it. And I was like, heck yeah, because that's where that confidence really comes from. It's like when you feel sexy from the inside out, not from the outside in, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, tell us a little bit about you and your family and what you were struggling with before you ever joined Sensually Embodied Woman in the first place.
Yeah. So I'm married and I have 2 kids, 3 and 6. And my husband and I had kind of a whirlwind of a courtship, and I got pregnant pretty quickly, which we joked that it was actually good for our relationship because it forced us to stay together and work through our shit. in that we had such little time to appreciate and explore each other. And, I was at the time on my own self-discovery journey, and I was just starting to get little glimpses of who I was, outside of long-term relationships or anything like that. Getting pregnant without planning it, like it totally rocked my world. And I was so emotional, and I just kind of disconnected. Like I had no idea who I was anymore with that identity as a mother. And so I was just wandering through my life, kind of feeling lost and disconnected. And I had some fairly traumatic birth experiences. It wasn't, nothing major, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't the beautiful birth that we all picture ourselves having, right? So things did not go as planned. And that just, put me into more disconnect from myself and my body. And I had a complete lack of desire. Like, I'd give in once in a while and have sex with my husband, but I was like, okay, come on, get it over with. And every once in a while, like I was starting to get to the point where, oh yeah, this kind of feels good. Like, yeah, eventually I can probably get back into this again, but it was definitely not anything noteworthy. And aside from that, like I didn't even know what I wanted. Like I couldn't tell him to do something different because I didn't know what I liked or what would feel good. And even if I did, I just had this inability to speak up for myself and use my voice to, say, hey, that doesn't really feel good, and I was just, I was kind of a wreck.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one. That's so many women that join my programs and work with me one-on-one or in the group program for sure. Is just this like, yeah, I never got taught about pleasure. I don't know what works for me, much less like how to speak up about it in a way that feels good and empowering and awesome. So yeah, okay. Well, tell us a little bit about what you've done in the past. Like, I know your births were kind of not how you'd hoped that they would go. Like, what did you do to try and heal from that? What did you do to try and get your spark back and your passion back for life before you joined the program that may or may not have really worked?
Yeah. So one of the things that I did after my second child is I went to a pelvic floor PT. I had some pain and some prolapse and stuff. And so she was able to help me fix that. And I had done a program on postpartum corrective exercise, mostly for myself, but I was inspired to bring that to other women. So I'm doing that in my life now. But I knew there was something wrong. I worked with another friend of mine who's a coach. She was amazing. She helped me clear a lot of stuff, limiting beliefs and just like old bullshit stories and stuff that weren't serving me, that were keeping me, stuck in all of this. And I think she was really able to bring me to a place where I could admit that I had, some issues around sexuality and pleasure and all of that. And so finally I was ready for you. And I just had to join the program.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm so interested to hear about what you thought about the jade egg practice before you joined my course. Because Amira, she's actually a coach and she helps other women with postpartum corrective exercises and healing modalities and sort of things like that. I don't know how to explain everything you do, but so I know you're like super intelligent and well versed. You are like setting up for a course with Tammy Lynn Kent, I believe, who wrote the book Wild Feminine, which I always love and recommend. So tell me, what did you think about the jade egg practice?
So, yeah, I was a bit hesitant at first because within my professional group, we've had some discussions about, jade egg or vaginal weights or any sort of strengthening. And with the emphasis that it can really exacerbate pelvic floor issues, especially if you have a hypertonic pelvic floor, just like really tight. Adding any kind of extra weight to it can really just cause it to clamp down and get more tight. So I was a little cautious and hesitant going into the jade egg practice. And I thought, well, you know what? Tilly says this is the way to do it, So, okay, I'll give it a shot. And the first week of trying it, that's exactly what I experienced, was that super tight, painful, like more painful pelvic floor than I've ever experienced. Those muscles just clamped down. And so I used some of my own training to reverse the breathing that you coach in the practices, to do it in more of a way that I relax my pelvic floor more. And I've actually really come to enjoy the jade egg practices now that I've gotten over that hurdle. And I won't discourage my clients from doing anything like that. Just bring that awareness to them that, like, hey, it can help, but it can, also exacerbate. So watch what you're doing. So
cool. So tell me about what you had to do to help relax your pelvic floor. Well, one thing before you go into that, because there are women that do need to strengthen and tone it. And then there are women who hold so much conditioning and trauma in their pelvic floor that the tension is a problem. And if there's any teacher that teaches a very feminine way, I think it would be me, because there are lots of jade egg teachers that are like, oh, it's all about strengthening and let's lift weights with our vaginas and all sorts of stuff. And I don't do that. Like, we don't have any weight training in my program at all. It's not that. Yeah. It's mostly about teaching you how to relax so that it can actually get toned and strengthened. So tell me, like, what was your process for that?
So what I learned and what I teach has to do with the breathing. And the very first thing I do with all my clients is teach them how to breathe the right way. Because so many of us are a bit reverse in our breathing, which you mentioned, like you teach the breathing the way you do because that's what people are used to. So instead, on the inhale, relax the pelvic floor, you breathe into the pelvic floor. So I practice what we call 360 breathing. So you're breathing, it's like blowing up a balloon. It doesn't just expand in one spot. So you don't want to just breathe into the belly or just breathe into the chest, but you breathe all around. So inhale and expand and relax. And on the use the exhale, you get that natural contraction of the pelvic floor with every exhale, but then just using that exhale to accentuate the contractions when we did contractions with the jade egg. So it was just basically reversing the breathing and making sure that I'm getting that full 360 breath on the inhale.
Yeah.
And I was able to keep the muscles quite a lot more quiet, actually. So, yeah.
Oh, so cool. Yeah. So the first week in our jade egg practices is teaching you how to drop into pleasure without the goal of orgasm, right? And then the second week is trauma healing and healing in general. So you're learning so many different ways to relax the pelvic floor so that it can release some of the tension and the stress hanging out there. But you were experiencing that tension in the first week with the pleasure week even.
Yes.
Yes. So tell me, what were some of your greatest wins around that? Because as I mentioned, cervical orgasms on Christmas. So what were some of the things that helped you to get there? Do you find that the jade egg helped you? Do you find it was something else that helped you to get there? Like, what were your greatest wins in your opinion?
The jade egg was definitely a magical experience. Every time I did a jade egg practice, I would just feel energized and turned on and just, ready to receive pleasure in whatever form, even if it's just, doing a puzzle with my kids or something, that it just really helped me bring pleasure into my daily life. And yeah, I have noticed definitely a stronger pelvic floor, which has made sex and orgasms way better than I think they've probably ever been in my life. So, so yeah, definitely the jade egg was amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Every time I use it for like a couple weeks at a time, I always find my orgasms are way stronger as well. It's kind of one of those lifestyle practices. Like once you start a practice and you start doing it and then you don't do it for a little while, it's like, oh, right. That's more often because my orgasms are so much better when I do them. But yeah, there's definitely times when I go, a month or two without using my jade egg. And then I'm like, oh, right. I need to be doing my practices again. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And for somebody like me that was, experiencing a lack of desire, doing the jade egg practices definitely brought that desire to the surface. And so, I'll notice like, oh, my husband and I are kind of going through a dry spell right now. Oh yeah, I haven't done my jade egg for a week. I should, should get back on that. So
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. You said something really interesting there. Is like with the lack of desire, doing the practices helped me. If someone is sitting here thinking, well, how did you even get yourself to the point where you could do a jade egg practice to help? It's like that initial input energy that you got to get things going, to get that ball rolling. Like, how did you overcome that?
So you always recommend that we do like a warm-up practice to get just a little bit turned on. And it's usually some sort of like body massage or just, touching yourself and just using your hands and figuring out what feels good on your body. And so I just experimented each time, touching different parts in different ways. And I actually found what my body likes and enjoys and what actually turns me on. And I've been able to share that with my husband now. I'm like, in foreplay, I'm like, no, don't do that. That's me. Do this instead. So it just really a lot of experimentation with just literally getting in touch with my body helped me find, the things that lit me up a little bit. And so then using that energy then to go into the jade egg practice.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, were there any other big ones or celebrations or breaks that you want to share with us from the program?
Yeah. So aside from the, the desire and the orgasms and all the wonderful things, like actually learning how to use my voice to speak up for myself and not just sexually, just like my parents used to always tease me about how indecisive I was. I couldn't make up my mind. I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't voice what I wanted, kind of like for fear of rejection or being made fun of or whatever. But a lot of the practices that we've done, like I'm finally figuring out like what I like. And so what I like in my whole life, then I can say, hey, this is what I want. And kind of just stand up for myself and speak with my own voice and get the things that I want. And it's kind of, I didn't know it was so simple as just being able to ask for it, right?
Right? Isn't that crazy? I mean, it should be so obvious to everyone, but there's such a link between the cervix and the throat. And I've talked about that several times on the podcast, but the cervix and the throat are connected through vagus nerve. And when you're activating one, you're activating the other. So it comes as no surprise to me that as soon as Amira started having cervical orgasms, that her throat was able to open up and she was able to speak her desires more clearly and fully. So I'm also wondering, like, how do you feel this is showing up in your business? Because I remember you had a big win in your business too.
Yeah. So I was just fully immersed in the program and not really thinking directly about trying to get clients or anything like that. And I was just, really in it, experiencing the pleasure and the freedom that I was feeling. And out of the blue, this woman contacted me and was like, hey, I want to work with you. And I was like, okay. Like I had done nothing on social media for months. I I wasn't advertising any programs or one-on-one coaching or anything. And this woman was just like, hey, I want to work with you. I need what you have. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's great. So, and I was able to charge an amount of money that I felt good with, and not something, that I was asking for out of, fear or lack, or, it wasn't just a couple $100 to work with me, it cost her more. So, but totally worth it. And I feel better about, taking on a client at this time if I'm actually getting something out of it myself. So,
right. Yes, working on that giving and receiving muscle.
Yes, definitely the ability to receive as well. Yeah, that was a big point for me.
Yeah, so many women are they're so great at giving. We're all so great at giving, but receiving is much more of a challenge for most of us. And it can be such a great thing to work on your sexuality, to learn how to receive, because you really do. It teaches you to learn how to receive and expand your capacity to receive. So yeah, it's just like a byproduct of working on your sexuality, is that you expand that capacity. So
yeah. And I was, always in my life, I was like the awkward one. If somebody complimented me, I'm like, oh gosh, but our last call, our graduation call, I was getting like this flood of, compliments from the women in the group. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's so nice. Thank you. And I could receive them.
oh yeah,
and that was great. That was huge for me.
Yay. That's so amazing to hear. I know the first time I went to a retreat with a bunch of women, and we did this practice where we were receiving compliments for like an hour, and it got to the point where like a couple of the women were starting to get nauseated and wanted to go vomit, because it was just so difficult to receive so many words of praise and compliments, and we're just so good at dismissing them when we get them. Like learning how to really take that in, it's a shock to our nervous system when we start to receive like that. It's like, oh, freak out. Oh, I need to go vomit this up because I can't hold it in, literally.
Right.
So I love that, your work on your sexuality has been able to expand your capacity to take all of that goodness in, because it really does take you out of survival and into thriving.
Yeah, definitely. And I've definitely felt that for sure.
That's awesome. Well, what do you feel is possible for you now that you've completed the program?
Anything I want, really. I feel empowered to continue just loving myself and really putting myself first, because I've seen firsthand how when, I'm consistent with my practices, the pleasure practices, or just any kind of practice that I want to do, yoga, pranayama, anything that makes me feel good, then I am better able to provide for my family and for others, my clients, and so many tools that I can use to just go forward and literally do anything that I want to do. It's so amazing to not feel limited by like, oh, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, or, being indecisive, or not being able to share my voice with the world in any capacity, Now that I can have anything I want.
I know, you're a magical freaking queen being, and like you're here doing this podcast, and it's like going out to thousands of people that are going to hear it, and it's like just the beginning and just the start of you really taking your business to the next level too, because anytime you work on sexuality, it's such a base level function. I mean, not to downgrade it or diminish it by any means, but it's such a foundation of how we show up in our lives in general in every single area. So I'm excited to see where your business goes from here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us, what was your favorite part of the program? There's so many different components, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, gosh. I think one of the big, not so obvious things was just the connection with the other women in the group. Like every time we did a group coaching session, somebody would bring something up, and at least half of us would hop on and be like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing the same thing. Like, I'm with you, I feel you. And just, despite how different we were from, age, race, background, sexual orientation, or whatever, we were all different, but there was so much underlying that was the same. The types of traumas we've experienced, and or yeah, just the way that we judge ourselves or think about ourselves, just to see that, like, oh, it's not weird that, I'm having this experience, whatever it is, because, almost everybody on this call is also in that same boat. And I think growing up, I was conditioned, I think a lot of us were conditioned, and to like pitting women against each other, it's like, even from school, like, oh, who's the popular crowd? Who's the nerds or the dorks or whatever? And it's always like against each other. And it's so frightening to feel that you have to be in competition with women like your whole life. Even becoming a mother, it becomes like, oh, when did your child start sleeping through the night? Oh, when did they take their first step? Oh, well, mine did it like, 3 months before yours, and foo on you. So, it's just like everything feels like a competition, or it did for me, when it came to other women, but just seeing how we are so similar and how we can all connect, and how we're so much more powerful when we come together and we work together and we heal our traumas and all of that together. That was really powerful for me. So I would, I'm excited to create those types of relationships in my life now, to get closer with women in my life and not be, afraid of being judged or anything like that. Cause just realizing we're all, we're all struggling with the same stuff. Just having also the accountability to do our, daily rituals and practices. And it's something that I'd been wanting to do. I'm like, I know I'll feel better if I do this, but I just didn't have any kind of motivation to take care of myself. But within this container, you definitely provide that accountability, and encouragement. And, there's no shaming or anything like that if you don't do it, but just having that and being able to establish those daily rituals and routines, like it's helped in so many aspects of my life. So I'm very grateful for that, that I'll be able to take these practices on beyond our time together. So
Amazing. So cool. Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, tell us, who do you think, or what type of woman should join this program in the future?
I'd really like to say that it's a program for everyone. Like, anybody who does it will get something amazing out of it. But I think you have to be aware that you have these issues, and they're not, it's not normal to feel that way that you do. Just because, 50 other women around you also feel that way, it doesn't mean that it's right. And you can fix it. So yeah, you kind of have to be in that space where you want to feel better, you want to do better, you want to be better. And even just being aware that there's something that can change. Just everybody, but not the people who aren't ready for it. I don't know. You have to be at this point where you're willing to receive the teachings, because they are so powerful, sometimes really uncomfortable, but so incredibly worth it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Anything else that you'd like to share with everyone listening before we wrap up?
I'd say if you're on the fence about joining the program, just jump in and do it, and thank yourself later.
Thank yourself later, yes. Ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, the last day to join is March 2nd for this next round. And you can go and find all of the details and apply at www.tillystorm.com/sensually-embodied-woman. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Amira.
Thank you for having me, Tilly.
Bye.
Bye.